Who has had enough of Dumbo and his circus of evasive characters? Well, I have, but I'm going to have to get a whole bunch more testing in against it since I'm going to Italy, the Bologna Challenge this weekend, and I'm very excited about it, but Dumbo is just so much of the meta. So this week I was lucky enough to get a friend and a local player to come and play test with me. John is very, very good at playing Blurple. He's been playing Blurple for, I'm going to say weeks, but it might be more like months now. And fantastic players. Been playing TCGs for a long time, and so it was great to have him come in and run me through the Blurple matchup. So we played 4 matches. Good thing for me was all matches went to game 3, which meant that I was holding my own enough to bring each match to game 3. I won 2 matches. He won 2 matches, which was great. I guess it would have been nice to have had a tie-breaking match, but we ran out of time there. But anyways, let's go into what the deck list looked like, and then we'll go into one of the matches. All right, so this is my deck list here. This is the deck list that I've been playing pretty much plus or minus like a couple different cards for a couple weeks now. This is my Puppy Princess Aggro list here, and you can see that I've got kind of bolts and ladies and Plutos as my puppy side, and I've got Mulans and Tianas and Auroras as my princess side. It is a very fast deck. It is, it's really good into Blurple, especially if you can figure out how to pilot it quick enough to be able to get under the control deck. The goal here to win is to win before the control deck gets control of the field, because as their name kind of suggests, it's exactly what they want to do. This deck can be very fast. Like I said, it has a couple of different ways to answer Blurple, but the main point or the main winning strategy here is to make Blurple use their resources dealing with you as opposed to pushing their own game plan forward. In the matches that I lost, that was kind of what the problem was. Most of the games went too late. I either had too slow of a startup or I was too concerned with what was going on John's side of the board that I felt like I had to use my resources to deal with him when I really probably should have just been questing or picked my cards up a couple turns earlier when it was just very clear that I was too slow off the mark and he had control of it. But anyways, this is my list here, and let's go into what John is playing. All right, this is John's Blurple list. It's a fairly standard looking list. At this point in time, Blurple seems to have, Blurple Dumbo seems to have figured itself out. Again, plus or minus 2 cards. Most decks out there have the same general configuration. Big thing about the deck is you want to be playing your evasive characters to be able to get the bonus off of Dumbo, which is you pay an ink and you can exert the character to gain a lore and draw a card. It's a fantastic strategy. There's a couple of games that I was rewatching the gameplay on, and John had like he drew like 5 or 6 cards in a turn, which was ridiculous. Like huge amount of cards in his hand to be able to have options to be able to play. Now, he can only be able to play those options to be able to get rid of our threats if he has enough ink and resources to be able to do it. So again, game plan here is to win and win fast. The cards that are tough against us are the early challengers, like the Royal Guard or the Rafiki, as they can take out that main kind of plan that we have here, which is the Aurora. However, it is worth the risking the Aurora to be able to get the Tiana out nice and early. Other things that are problematic are the answer cards like the Hades or the Into the Unknown that get rid of our cards, and that was John's way of more or less getting rid of my Tianas almost every time. Was he didn't want to challenge her if he didn't have to. He'd prefer to Into the Unknown her or Hades her so that he could challenge down the rest of my field. Other things here that were worth noting is the Madam Mim Elephant. She was just brutal to play against. I mean, she's a 3/7, so she can take out a lot of my characters. And then on top of that, she moves damage around at the beginning of each turn. It was just so hard to get rid of her. So if the damage stuck around, I would have been able to get rid of her a lot sooner. But the fact that he could take that damage off of her and start to move it around on my characters, healing that Mim and keeping her alive, she was something that just had to go. It took me a couple games against him to figure out how to get rid of her, but the game plan was as soon as she was out, either get rid of her or just try to run right past her if that was possible. So here is one of the matches that we played, and I'll have a couple more thoughts after the video on how the rest of the matches went. All right, game 1. So I'm on the play, and we just went right into me inking and passing here. So John is going to play a Royal Guard. Royal Guard becomes a potential problem early game because he can draw a lot of cards, at least a lot of cards to be able to pump up that Royal Guard, be able to take out my early turn plays. 2 Royal Guards, a little bit of a problem, but you know what? There's worse things that he could have played. So I have a Mr. Arrow out there and a Pete. So no actions for him, and I decide not to quest just because I don't want to be empty boarded this early on in the game. And those Royal Guards can probably take out my Mr. Arrow, no problem. I have Strength of Raging Fire to get rid of that Iago, as that 4/6 with evasive is going to be a problem, and I do the Strength of Raging Fire to get rid of him just to make sure that he stays away. So I don't have 6 characters out, but that's the nice thing about Vanish for me, is I don't have to in order to be able to get rid of him. He plays Elsa, the 5th Spirit, to tap down my Daisy, but since he takes out the Mr. Arrow instead there, so he's got 1 damage on each of his characters. And then we go back into my turn here. So I've got 2 characters that punch pretty hard, but I mean, his characters with evasive will become a problem. And I'm going to play John Silver. So this John Silver says that chosen character can't challenge during the next turn. I'm going to pick the Elsa because she's kind of the biggest. And then I'm going to challenge down a Royal Guard to get rid of it to make sure that he has less characters to be able to challenge to get rid of my stuff. And I'm going to try to slowly build my board here, questing with whoever I can to slowly push myself closer and closer to that finish line. He plays a Dumbo, which is kind of one of the named cards of this deck, and then he's going to use it to quest and gain lore, and then he's going to take out my Daisy deck with his Royal Guard. Easy enough to take out the Royal Guard for me and have my characters stick around, as the Petes and the John Silvers are all nice and big, and then I play a Prince in Bodyguard and a Penny. Penny gives somebody a resist when she comes in, and I'm going to make that the Prince to make him hard to deal with. However, Into the Unknown doesn't really care about that resist, it just gets rid of him. I'm going to quest, which puts me a little bit closer to that finishing line there, and I'm going to play Nala. So just because she is uninkable and she quests for so much, I was playing Nala way too early in most of these games. Nala should come out around here as more of a finishing piece. So Nala is more of like a late game play than an early game play, and I got to kind of learn that one myself. I've got better early game plays against Blurple, like the Penny with resist. I'm in top deck mode, never where I want to be, especially not looking at that many larger characters from Blurple's side. And I'm kind of doing some quick math, trying to figure out, is it really even worth it to continue on this game? And or is it worth it to quest here? So I'm going to pass. I'm looking at all of his characters. His characters can take out my characters, no problem, and still leave him with stuff on the board. And he's going to Hades away my Nala. Now, I should have counted his ink and known that he was going to be at that much ink to be able to Hades something. And I guess at least if I quest with the Nala, that would have put me at +3. However, I decide to quest there, and he's going to Hades away the Tiana. So you can see this is kind of what I've been saying, that when Blurple gets too late into the game, they have all of the answers, they have all of the card draw, and they can just kind of empty your board and keep it empty there. So I'm in top deck mode with an empty board, so we call the game there and we go on to game 2. Game 2, I am on the play again, which is great. I like being on the play. And we're just kind of waiting for John to finish up his mulligan there, and we'll get started. So I'm going to ink a Mulan and pass because she's not great first turn. She's a little bit better against aggro matches, but like early game, she's just ink. So I ink a second Mulan and I play a Nala. So like I was just saying, Nala is a little bit better late game, but stuck in my hand, she's uninkable. I'm going to play her in the early game and see what I can get out of her. I play a Tiana. This is going to be difficult for John to deal with early game, and then it goes back to me. So a Genie, a Tipo, and a Royal Guard on his side. I'm going to play a Prince and Bodyguard, give him resist with Penny, and then quest my characters up to 5. So this is a second level of protection here. The Prince and Bodyguard is 1 level of protection, makes him have to go through the Bodyguard first, and then my Tiana making everything -3 is that second level of protection, because not only does he have to go through a Prince resist it with 5 defense, but he also has to get the -3 from each of his characters. So I quest very safely up to 13 there, and he is in the unfortunate position for him to have to dig for answers. So I mean, like Hades, Into the Unknown, those are kind of the ways to deal with these, with this board state here. If he Into the Unknowns Tiana, then he can potentially challenge into the Prince, but the 2 of them there are a problem. I'm pointing out there that he can't get to my Nala there because of the -3 that everybody gets from Tiana. Even if he goes through the bodyguard, he still has to deal with that -3. And that is enough for him to call the game there, as that's a very tough state to deal with. Game 3. So we're 1-1. And John's on the play. He plays a Royal Guard. I play an Aurora, and peeking at my hand right there, I draw the Tiana, which is great. I think I've got a Tiana further in my hand there, and I play the Tiana and pass. So he's going to take out the Aurora, which is smart, and then he's going to use the Madame Mim Elephant to bounce the character that just took out the Aurora back to his hand. So I'm left with a Tiana, and that Madame Mim is going to be a problem. I play 2 Tianas and I pass. There's no point in me questing with the Tiana, especially when I could have 2 out. He's going to challenge in with the Mim. The idea here is that he has damage on the Mim. Now, even if he didn't do any damage to the Tiana, he's got damage that he can move around at the beginning of his turn. So I'm going to ink a bolt, which always makes me sad, but it's often the right call. And I'm going to play a Pluto in bodyguard mode and quest with my 2 Tianas. Puts me up to 5, which is a nice, huge layer of protection there. And he's going to put the 1 damage on the bolt to make it that Bolt does. Sorry, not Bolt, Pluto. He's going to put 1 damage on Pluto to make sure that Pluto doesn't really take out his characters and kind of starts to chip damage the Pluto. But with that -6, 3 from each Tiana, that's going to be tough to deal with. And I play a Bolt behind a Pluto with 2 Tianas there. This is exactly what I want in my magical Christmas land of the cards working out really well for me. He pays the 3 ink, the 6 ink to take out Pluto with the TikTok, and then he swings in to get damage on his Mim to be able to move stuff around again. Here is that ideal thing of playing the 2 Nalas late game. They are difficult for him to deal with, especially with all of this stuff here, and they'll help me cross that finishing line. I only need 2 ink. 2 lore, which I easily have in one of the Nalas, even with the damage on her. And he gets rid of the 2 Tianas, which I'm sure is cathartic, but I still take the game there in 3. All right, so that was 1 out of 4 matches. Like I said, the first 2 matches, John was able to win and win solidly. However, I did take it in 3 games, and typically the winning strategy for me was always the same, which was win and win really fast. My favorite play was when I had like 2 Tianas and a Bolt out and then put a bodyguard right in front of them, or a Pete, played a Pete to be able to stop him from being able to use actions to get rid of my stuff. That just made me feel like I was on top of the world and was going to quest for everything, and I kind of did. The times when the games got away from me and John was able to win was when he was able to take control of the field. So this is getting late enough game that you can play Elsa the Fifth Spirit to tap down my characters to be able to challenge into them. Play Into the Unknown, sometimes Into the Unknown and Hades in one turn to get rid of anything that I have that is problematic, or be able to start challenging down and being able to like move damage around with either the Bells or the Madame Mims. Those definitely were kind of like devastating things, and if I couldn't win by like turn 5 or 6 at the latest, it definitely was John's game. So like I said, there was 4 matches, and I won exactly half the games. He won exactly half the games to have 2-2 as far as the match goes. As far as things to remember go, or like plans or strategies here that I've kind of solidified as like Aggro's plan against Blurple, is it's win and win fast. Don't be afraid to just quest with all of your characters, especially if you can sit there and assume that most of your characters will be okay. Now, you're going to want to make sure that you do the math on this and make sure that they can't just empty your field and have you top decking. That's not fun. So there's definitely some times where you're going to want to hold back, especially if you have something in your hand for the next turn that's going to protect your characters. Like, say, a bodyguard. If you can put a bodyguard out there, you can then turn your characters sideways successfully to be able to gain your lore and keep your characters as safe as possible. Best thing here was 2 layers of protection. So a bodyguard, in this I'd say a prince, just because Pluto does put damage on your opponent's characters, which lets him move them around with either the Madame Mim or the Belle. So Prince was a great one because it meant that damage didn't really stick around to be able to move around. And then a Tiana making everything cost more to be able to challenge in. That definitely seemed to have made the math more favorable in my favor a number of times. Tiana and Aurora are the most ideal turn 1, turn 2 play. But This deck has so many uninkables that it's not worth digging super hard on your mulligan for. If you don't get them in your mulligan and it doesn't look like you're going to get them, I mean, I'd keep it Aurora because she's inkable at the very least, but it's not worth playing the Aurora in order to hope to get the Tiana. The games where I played the Aurora to try to get the Tiana, I didn't get the game. It wasn't fast enough. It was too slow for me to be able to take it, and me banking on that Tiana was not as good as other turns I could, turn one plays I could have done, or alternately having the having the Aurora for ink. So yeah. Those are kind of the lessons to learn from this. Your strategy should be win fast. Don't be afraid to challenge down their characters, though, too. Aggro is more than just turning your character sideways to be able to get lore. You do need to look at your opponent's side of the board and know what needs to go in order to make your characters as safe as possible. So taking like a Tiana and challenging into like a Rafiki or a Royal Guard to do that last point of damage takes a challenger away from your opponent, which lets your characters be a little bit more on the safer side. You also, the lesson that I learned here is you also want to make sure that you're communicating really well with your opponent. A lot of people can kind of rush through things that they're super confident on and say, I do this, this, and this. Make sure you're always just communicating with your opponent and saying, did you remember this or this or this? It is totally on... It's totally perfectly fine for you to kind of like question board state and be able to clarify some things. Because I know I definitely forget things that are on the table, and I know my opponents do too. And that -3 from Tiana is the one that is kind of like the big deal breaker here, or the resist that Penny can give things. So make sure that you're kind of always remembering where those are for you to make you, because you play them to keep your character safe, and you want to make sure that you remember them at key moments to keep your character safe. So that was the gist of this. My big feelings, I guess, going into Bologna for Blurple is I think it is a good match for me if I can win that dice roll, but also if I can kind of get a really, really fast turn. And that will be my goal, is to win and win fast so I can eat my snacks. And my best way to do that is have a really good opening hand, have an Aurora and a Tiana, and hopefully win those dice rolls.